Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Tom and today it's another first draft reveal and I'm joined by Joe. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks. Just getting my head round all the changes to FPL this season, which are very positive, I think. I know we'll talk about them later, but I think they do benefit lots of players like me and lots of players who aren't like me, who have a different strategy. And also, it's full of lots of potential pitfalls for players like me and other players. So I think it's got something for everyone. The capacity to deliver us a good rank at the end or destroy our seasons.
Yeah, we'll get into those changes shortly. But first, on the screen and for the podcast listen, I've got your rank history up. It's very impressive, I've got to say. There's lots of top 10k finishes there. But the thing that probably stands out most is just the amount of seasons on there, which is
Mm.
obviously for someone who's
Well,
22 is quite
yeah.
shocking. But anyway,
Well,
um,
thank you very much. I know I look it, but I'm actually 52.
um, but
Um,
yeah,
uh,
but yeah,
but
sorry. So yeah, I guess the first question is sort of how would you put the changes that we've got for this season into context over your
well,
sort of historical record?
I've literally just come off the back of interviewing Mark Southerns for his team reveal about half an hour ago. That's going to be going out possibly before or after this video. But so you do check that out on Fantasy Football Scouts YouTube channel and podcast as well. But yes, I've been playing for 17 years, I think. He's been, I think he's been playing for 2 seasons longer than that. So he's been playing for like I think I'm about to have my 17th season. I can't even count down how many, and he's definitely two more than that. And he used to play it when he used to send off his fancy team in an envelope to a newspaper. So that's how long he's been playing it. So you say it's a lot, but I come from a generation where I look at my team and I think, well, I'm still quite a newbie, really. There's still these people out there who've been playing for 3 or 4 years more than me. But how do I think this season will fare? That I think there's a lot of similarities this season already to previous seasons. The last 2 to 3 seasons, I think they have neglected the prices somewhat. Last season, I did a number of these videos with people, and to be honest, everyone's teams were exactly the same because you could afford all the players. So I think that's going to be different because before it wasn't like that. Before you had, say, for example, you had a so-called holy trinity in midfield of Ronaldo, Gerrard, and Lampard, who were just getting returns every week, double-digit scores every week. And then you put Fabregas in the mix, and then Fellaini at Everton, and suddenly you had this sort of holy quintet, this famous five, this fabulous five in midfield. That you were trying to get, and it was very difficult to get. You had to make a lot of sacrifices elsewhere, but it could be done. And I think this season, I think we've got more of that. We've got more expensive players. And so the search for bargains is more important. So in theory, the changes should help me by the changes of pricing. But it also gives pitfalls because how often have we used a wild card and it not worked out? And so there's lots of chance for me to, we can of course save 5 transfers this season. So there's lots of potential for me to spend those 5 transfers, save up, spend those 5 transfers, miss out on lots of bandwagons for a month and a bit, and then completely waste those 5 transfers. So there's lots of potentials for pitfalls there. So I like the changes, and I think it goes back to some of those things. So you can see my early season when I first started playing. I didn't really know what I was doing, but then gradually got into it. Discovered Fantasy Football Scout and got a 59k finish. But to be honest, there was only about 100k people playing. No, it was about a million, I think. Um, and then a whole bunch of top 10, really high finishes, top 10k finishes for a number of years. And then the COVID time, I had a period of illness as well, and those things affected it. But the recent years, I feel quite pleased to get the most recent seasons do pretty well in the last 2 seasons because that was sort of the first seasons that weren't disrupted by something like COVID. But I think they've been genuinely quite easy seasons because you can afford everyone. And then suddenly, I mean, you're a Chelsea fan, suddenly someone like Palmer comes on the scene and pretty much breaks the game.
Yeah.
And you can afford him and all the other. It was just ridiculous. I would say about five of our teams, it was irrelevant. Palmer scored. Palmer could have scored 10 goals in a match, and I wouldn't even cared. I mean, you would as a Chelsea fan, but I just would not have bothered me as an owner because everyone got those 10 goals. Or if he was a captainable that week, we all got those returns. But it's very different this year. We can't have them all, and I think that'll be the theme in all of these team reveals. And it will make content more interesting. There'll be much more about strategy, and I think I personally will look at a wider range of content, but also closely follow managers who are very similar to me and see how they're adapting to the changes. So Zoth at FPL Wire, often we are very similar. We make similar moves. So I'll be looking at his moves very closely because I think his thinking will be the same with me. FPL General is another. They're kind of patient, dullard managers, wait for information. Information is key. And that may be because I'm a journalist as well. So the value of information. And also I like narrative of a so that can be to my detriment. I got Salah in for his last Klopp's last hurrah last season, captained him. That didn't work out. But I just like them. I couldn't resist the narrative of it.
Yeah, I mean the thing that stands out to me for that rank history is just the consistency. Like there's one finish above 100k, but that's only just. And
By
then
923
yeah,
places. You imagine how annoyed I was by
yeah,
by that.
and then obviously in 2020 and 2021 it's almost the same rank, which is pretty incredible. But yeah, what would you've just mentioned there that you like waiting for transfers, you like information. Would you contribute that to your consistency?
Oh yeah, totally, yeah. And being patient because there are certain sort of common, I'm going to just say common mistakes that managers make, and that's to make too many hits. Hits can pay off, and I think with the five changes, the five you can bank five transfers this time around. I think there's going to be a difference this season. I think hits are going to be even more frowned upon. So last season, I think I took about four or five hits. And so I think that's the key really, and that goes with waiting for information. So I don't tend to look at effective ownership. Oh, I mean only in terms of I search for differentials, but I don't doesn't tend to make my decision. My decision will be based on the quality of the player or the match. Whether that pans out is another matter. And that information is key. So, for example, we're stacked full of it this pre-season. I'm sure you will plug it, but will anyway. But like Neil's amazing pre-season coverage at Fantasy Football Scout is incredible. Not only does it, who is playing, who's getting the minutes, who's scoring the goals, but you also pick up other things. For example, who's going to the Olympics? Who's because the Olympics finishes like a week before the season, something like that.
Yeah,
Who was in their cup competition? Will Foden, Saka, will they start the season? You would imagine Saka would, but will Foden? Pep does tend to likes for sort of optimal fitness, so perhaps Foden will wait. So it's that type of information, and it'll be go right to the wire, I think, right up until deadline for game week 1. So that's what I quite like, and for better or worse, I prefer those types of seasons. I like waiting for the information, using the research, getting the stories. Is that player in the bad books with that manager, that type of thing, and that's the way I like to play it. But as I said, I've just been recording with Mark. He's a completely different manager like that. I mean, obviously he looks at the research and those types of things, but he will make aggressive moves to get team value and to get bandwagons. So he's getting those form bayers quickly. He's not hanging around. And I just hang around a bit too much. So sometimes I might hang around a bit too long. Sometimes it's to my benefit. So that's the sort of manager I am. And others watching and listening to this will be similar, and others will be like, "What's this guy talking about? He should be taking hits every week. That's the fun of the game." So that's another type of manager.
yeah, interesting stuff. So we'll move on now to Brighton. What we're going to do in these team reveal videos, as well as go through the first draft, we're going to get some fan opinion because I think that's really useful, especially for clubs like Brighton where there's a new manager. Last season's obviously hard to judge because there was a lot of injuries. European football added in complications as well. So for the podcast listeners, I've got on screen a table from the Fantasy Football Scout members area which has the best Brighton players in 2023-24 sorted by minutes per expected goal involvement. And right at the top, with a expected goal involvement every 125 minutes, is João Pedro, who I've seen in a few teams, and we'll come to your team later, Joe. But spoiler alert, he could be in there. And then second is Enciso, third is Solly March, then Pascal Gross, who is being linked with a move away, and then Matoma, Welbeck, Ferguson, Adingra, who's also being linked with a move away, and then Hinchelwood, and then Estepinian and Dunk at the bottom. So I guess we'll start holistically. So you've got a new manager, the injuries are clearing up, I think, and no European football. So how do you see Brighton going into this season?
Well, I think, well, hopefully two things will change. I believe they've got some new medical staff now, which hopefully will help with the injuries. Because last year I mean, every team will say were decimated by injuries, but Brighton really were. It was a lot of their key players. And Cisse was out for a while, Matoma, March. A lot of these players were out. Ferguson also out a lot, and these were very key players. So looking at this season, it'll be different. There won't be European distractions. We've got a new manager, but at Brighton ever since I think only Chris Hughton was the only anomaly in ever since Gus Poyet, the manager's been broadly similar, as in they've been doing something a bit innovative, different. They favour players, very good, very good at passing out from the back, building up play, short passing games. It was also, it all comes from an era when Brighton were in the Championship, so they were playing. They wanted to emulate Swansea at the time, who were like, Swanzalona, copying that Barcelona style. And Brighton have always gone for that type of manager, and you can see that. So apart from Chris Hughton, who got us into the Premier League and kept us there for the first season, but they quickly moved back to type, and that's when you saw the likes of Potter coming in, who was incidentally Swansea's manager. So there's no obvious link there. And then you see Zerbi come in, another innovative manager doing something a bit differently sometimes. And it gives you as a fan, gives you a bit of a heart attack when you watch them play out with the back, draw play into them, and for Lewis Dunk drawing the play into him only to swiftly pass the ball away from a advancing attacker at the last second. And now we've got a manager who is the first Premier League manager to be younger than the Big Breakfast, and he's within a decade of your birth as well. So that's how young he is. And so we don't quite know what to expect, but what I do know what to expect is that he will do things differently. He'll be innovative. He'll use players in a variety of different ways. I cannot see there being an end to that sort of short passing game, drawing play, drawing fouls. And incidentally, Pedro, in terms of fouls, won 60 fouls. That's no surprise. So that's the sort of play I expect. But they've got a lot of players that have come in. So we've still got Matoma, March coming back from injury, Ferguson hopefully coming back from injury. But at the same time, they've got in Minter and Osman, wingers. There, Minter coming from Newcastle, Max Pfeiffer, Corey, these new midfielders coming in. So we're going to have a new look midfield. I don't know how it's going to pan out. What will be there will be stability in that Lewis Dunk will obviously remain the captain, be at the centre, be a good option, I think. And especially because, as the table on the screen shows, and for those listening on the podcast, I've included Dunk in here in terms of his expected minutes per his minutes per expected goal involvement is very poor, as you would imagine. But nevertheless, he has minutes per shot on target is every 239 minutes, which is just below Estupinan, who's considered more attacking, and he's won 12 fouls as well, and he's basically got a shot on him. So when Brighton's fixtures improve, so game week 4 and 5, for example, they've got that lovely Ipswich Nottingham Forest at home. So if you're not planning to wild cards, I think it would be advantageous to have a Brighton player or two for that nice Ipswich Nottingham Forest run. And then I'd be minded just to hop off because in terms of fixtures, they've got mixed early fixtures. They've got that lovely game week 4 to 5 run. But then from game weeks onwards, game week 6 onwards. I mean, they're bottom of the season ticker at Fantasy Football Scout. They got Chelsea, Tottenham, Newcastle. Good fixture against Wolves at home, then Liverpool, Man City. I mean, that's a really awful run. So I'll be looking to move off Brighton pretty quickly, or certainly bench them for the bulk of them because I cannot see, especially because defenders now will get -4 with the bonus point changes and -4 every goal they concede. And Brighton are going to see a lot of goals. So I don't want to be near their defence then, but I'm very happy to in the meantime. And Pedro, I think, is top because he's on penalties as well. And he can play anywhere in the sort of front positions. Can play nine, can play in the wings, can play sort of as an attacking midfielder. So that says to me that even if he doesn't start, he's going to come on possibly, and we've seen that before, win a penalty, against tired legs. In terms of wingers, completely unknown. Matoma, March, Minter, who knows? I don't know. Pre-season, we're gonna have to have a look at there. So yeah, pre-season will be very interesting for them, for Chelsea, for Liverpool. Who else has got a new manager? I can't
West
remember
Ham,
now.
West
West
Ham as well.
Ham,
Yeah.
West Ham. I mean, these are all going to be unknowns. People can say, "Oh, Salah's brilliant." They can say Bowen's brilliant, but we don't know until we've seen them in pre-season. Under whatever the manager wants from them.
Yeah, and certainly. And then just speaking briefly about the defence, we've got Estepinian at 5 million, Dunk at 4, and then the goalkeeper, sorry, 4.5, and then the goalkeepers at 4.5 as well. We
Mm.
should just say that for Bruggen, there's reports that he has picked up an injury,
Yeah,
which are unconfirmed at this stage, but if that is the case, he would miss game week 1, in which case I'm sure Steele would take over. But
yeah,
how do you sort of see those prices with Dunk at 4.5, Estepinian a bit
yeah,
more?
yeah. They're fine. I mean, I'm pleased Dunk is 4.5. He was 5 million last year season, which was preposterous, really. But yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, they're 4.5. They should be. They're stooping out at 5 million. He does offer more attacking threat. He does have competition from Barco, the Argentinian player. And I think he'll do well. He's only 4 million. That surprised me. Because if Stupinan's injured, which he does get injured, and Barco's there, the default left back or left wing back, whichever, then he's going to be an absolute steal at 4 million. With the goalkeepers, yeah, it's going to be Verbruggen. You would think he had a fantastic Euros. I think anyone watching that would just go, "Wow, Verbruggen's amazing." But yeah, he's going to miss the game with one. He's As of now, it looks like he's out for 6 weeks. But as I was saying, with the fixtures, it's really game weeks 4 and 5. That's where you would look for Brighton players. I think game weeks 4 and 5. It's very rare you get two good sides, two. I suppose you would say, I mean, poor sides defensively, back to back at home. But having said that, I was just talking to Mark as a not Nottingham Forest fan, and he thinks that Nottingham Forest are going to be tightening up this season, and their actually underlying stats were pretty good last season. They've got a new centre back partnership this season, so it's possible that Nottingham Forest game might be tougher than I think. And indeed, I think it was one of De Zerbi's first games in charge. It was a 0-0 at the Amex against Nottingham Forest. So yeah, there's a track record of no thrills there.
Interesting. So what we're going to do now, we're going to quickly shout out the Fantasy Football Scout members area, which is 40% off via the link in the description below. FPL is live, the game is live, pre-season has begun. We've already had friendlies. You've got, on the Fantasy Football Scout website, we've got the incredible minutes tracker, which is run by Neil, as Joe mentioned earlier. And that tracks every game, every player of pre-season, so you can see who's starting, who's in favour, who's getting goals, who's getting assists. And that's alongside your Opta data, Statsbomb data, which is new this year. Lots and lots of team reveals on the website as well. So check that out. 40% off in the description below.
Yeah, it's absolutely invaluable. That minutes tracker is amazing. But this stage of the season, you're going to get some players you go, who? Because a lot of them will play. A lot of the teams will have. I think it was last night the Spurs game. You'll have an 11 for the first half, and then a completely different 11 for the second half. But it's those final games the Community Shield, the last two or three friendlies, they tend to be a bit better side. Suddenly, a Bundesliga side will come over and face the likes of Arsenal, whoever, or Brighton, until you'll get a bit more of a sense of the team they're going in for. And it's those minutes, who's performing there, who's in favour. That's absolutely key. But yeah, it's absolutely, it's a real invaluable piece of research for fancy managers, I think.
Yeah, definitely check that out. Link in the description below. Right, so we'll move on to what the people are here for, and that is your first draft. So I'll quickly read this out for the podcast listeners. We've got Dean Henderson in goal, Dan Burn, Esri Konsa, Josko Gvardiol as a back three, Eze, Gordon, Salah, Gibbs White as a midfield four, and then Haaland, João Pedro, and Isak, who's currently got the captain's armband up front. And then on the bench, we've got Jose Sarr of Wolves, Morgan Rogers, Aston Villa midfielder, Lewis Dunk, who we've talked about, and Harwood Bellis, the 4 million Southampton defender. So I guess the thing that stands out there, Joe, is you've gone for Haaland and Salah.
Mm,
Were they the sort of the first building blocks that you put
mm.
in, and how locked in do you think those two are?
Well, no, the first building blocks were Gordon and Isak at home to Southampton, and Newcastle have a great run. And Isak, I thought, was my captain. Um, I'm looking at my team actually. I don't think I've got a vice captain. I don't know whether
In
the
goal, Dean Henderson.
oh, Dean Henson is. I wonder where it got to. Yeah, obviously Dean Henson isn't my vice captain. But yeah, it'll be Salah or Haaland. Yeah, no, I like to play sort of a price points game, and I also sort of play it in pre-season when you're constructing a team. So I like to construct a team early on, with looking at the sorts of players I might want in. So I say this every time I do these team reveals in pre-season. Don't look at the players, look at the prices. And I think in midfields, those mid-price midfielders, the sort of 6 to 7.5 there's so many. There's so many. So I want some of that. I want that prices. Now, I've got Eze, Gordon, and Gibbs White currently. It could be a number of others. Gibbs White can easily go down to Hudson Odoi, and then I can upgrade maybe Gordon to a Odegaard, for example, and go into the 8.5 category, which could be good. Eze can be, and Bomo can be, Rashford can be. There's all players that pre-season will tell us whether they're any good. Um, so I look at Haaland as well, and I think game week 2 at home to Ipswich. Now, one of the key lessons I've learnt from last season, and I think a lot of other people listening, watching will be too, is that Haaland is an amazing captain choice for easy home games, but there are better options for when he's away to a tougher team. And away to Chelsea is not a great start, I don't think, for Haaland, but he does have that home game at Ipswich. And I'm looking at Haaland to move off in game week 3 for Watkins. And a lot of people are going to start with Watkins. I think he's one of the most well-known players at the moment as it stands. But looking at the fixtures, he's got West Ham away, then Arsenal at home. Then that doesn't say to me, oh my God, I must get Ollie Watkins in my team at all costs. That says to me, oh, I can wait. Game week 3 away to Leicester. That is the sort of time I might want Ollie Watkins, especially because he's got Everton at home, Wolves at home, two great home fixtures afterwards. And then, well, I'm just looking for game week 6 onwards. And then they got Ipswich away, Manchester United at home, Fulham away, Bournemouth at home. That's when I want lots of Ollie Watkins in my team. I can only have one Ollie Watkins, but I want him in my team there. And I can live without Haaland. So game week 2 is I really want Haaland. Then he's got okay fixtures. The Brentford at home game, isn't it? Historically, it's been tough. Man City got Arsenal at home as well. And it's not until and then you got Newcastle game week 6. It's poor, but game week 7, I want to get back to Haaland. So then I have a choice of do I maybe hop off and upgrade. I've used money, and so I try and get Haaland back. But I will have hopefully saved up some transfers because we can, of course, carry up to 5 transfers this season. So hopefully, because of that rule change, you need probably 3 transfers to get Haaland back if you spread the money out. And maybe I don't want Salah anymore after that. So maybe he can be downgraded, and then I can use that money to upgrade a striker back to Haaland. So I'm keeping it sort of slightly flexible, but I'm looking at those fixtures, and it's like fancy football. Like in the is in a, as a kind of metaphor. It's like the ocean. It's like trying to surf. I'm a 52-year-old man who lives in Somerset, so I don't surf. I'm landlocked. I would obviously otherwise, but that's what it is. You've got this vast ocean. It's 10 million, 11 million people playing it. It's vast ocean. You get these waves coming over you. This wave saying Haaland's at home to Ipswich, game week 2. Another wave will say something else, and you've got to try and ride those waves all through the season. And that's why I look at this and I think, oh, waves coming. Ipswich at home, that's captainable for Haaland. And then the sea goes quiet again. And then suddenly game week 7, another huge waves coming. So you're trying to navigate the choppy waters of FPL, so to speak. And that's how you're doing it. And so that's how I view the season really. And I'm certainly these early fixtures. So and you've got to remain flexible with that as well. So game week 3, I'm looking to remove Haaland, upgrade a midfielder, and get Palmer in, or perhaps another midfielder, maybe Foden, and then get Watkins in. And I'll still have some money over as well. Then game week 7, look to sort of reverse that move, and depending on who'll want to move out. And that's the aim, really. But another thing I might consider is actually an early wild card. And in game week 3, really spread that Haaland cash, or game week 7, really bring that Haaland cash back. So and you can use all that money to pile it back into Haaland because I'd probably want him for a number of fixtures from game week 7. And so that's in my mind as well. So I don't rule out a game week 3 wild card or game week 7 one because it's all really around Haaland. I don't rule out saving transfers and being able to do it. Because another rule change is this mystery chip, and we don't know what that is. So for planners, that's absolutely hopeless. And so you can save your wild cards, which you've got to use by the end of the year, and by that year I mean by the end of December, ahead of January. You can save it until the Christmas fixtures and sort. Oh, great! I'll have a wild card. I'll to overhaul my team for the Christmas fixtures, and it'll set me up right up until March until I want to use my second wild card. And then, hey presto, the mystery chip is revealed to be an extra wild card, which so everyone else will then have um, will then they be able to use that. And you just think, well, I've just overhauled my team with this carefully laid out plan, and now I can just use this wild card, in this week. Or it could be everyone from Manchester gets double points. I don't know. It could be any. I don't know what it's going to be. So I don't want to be saving a wild card to find out that all those plans are just it should be teared up. So yeah. Um, so that's what I'm thinking at the moment. Riding the wave of all these people making transfers, all the content you're getting, trying to navigate that. And so at the moment, Haaland, I'm very, very certain, unless he gets injured or something, that he will remain in my team. And I'm also very, very certain I will remove him in game week 3. And already I've seen it on social media with some people looking at a team. So if I put up a similar team to this, and people say, "Do you really want, have a 50 million pound player in your team that you won't captain every week?" And I was going, "Well, no, I'm only going in for 2 weeks, so and I'm going to captain him in one of them. So it doesn't matter." People still make the mistake of thinking when they see these teams that I'm set in this for 38 weeks. I'm nowhere near that. I'm gonna move transfers around. Um,
Yeah, I'm with
but
you. I think Haaland is nigh on essential for that Ipswich at home fixture. That could be anything really.
yeah,
I guess so. You've said you like Isak in game week 1 for captaincy. You like Haaland in game week 2, which sort of lends itself to the question why Salah then
ah
why spending that much money?
right, okay. Well, Salah is the one that could go. So Salah's in there at the moment because it makes it easier. If Salah, okay, so if Salah's he's had a pre-season. Um, he hasn't been involved in any major cup tournaments. Um, so he'll be fresher than a lot of other players. He's under a new manager who may well play him. very attacking. He may well play him out wide. He may well tell him, don't come in centre and shoot. He may say, Salah, I want you right up top. You're the main man. And pre-season, when we talk about Neil's research, a fantasy football scout would tell us all of those things. And that those preseason games could say, wow, Salah's really on it and he's really going to exploit some of those tired legs early on in the season. In which case I'd want him in. But so I've got him in now. But if he doesn't show that and perhaps another Liverpool player, because Liverpool's fixtures early on are really good.
Yeah, they're top of the ticker for the first
Top of the
six.
ticket. Yeah, they're absolutely fantastic fixtures. Um, and it's a good run. So it could be that Gakpo's better, it could be Jota's better. I don't know because we've got a new manager. So it's there. Salah's sort of there as a placeholder. Now, if I don't go for Salah, I would probably get someone like Saka in, maybe Foden, maybe even go straight in for Palmer, although I don't like Palmer's first fixture. Um, and then I've suddenly got what 3 million, 2 million to play with. So then I would use that to upgrade elsewhere. Maybe one of the defenders up. Maybe João Pedro would go up. So I'd have a 2 million to put João Pedro to Gakpo, for example, and I would have that quite a nice, Haaland, Gakpo, Isak front three. That's what I mean. It's being flexible and it's thinking, we need to use that research and gather that information and then use that to make decisions. So the team I've got at the moment, I could quickly make those moves. Now, if I've got to suddenly get Salah in and I've already done the money, it's a bit so quite a long time. I don't want to spend too long doing that. So that's why Salah's in at the moment, but I'm not wed to him at all. But I feel with Isak, Gordon, and Haaland, I feel I am, yeah, pretty much married to Mormon style, obviously, because there's four of us.
Yeah, interesting. And then looking at the defense, you've obviously gone for 4.5 million defenders and then one premium
Mm,
in Gvardiol. I saw you were tweeting about Gvardiol's
mm.
potential under the new bonus point system. Has that contributed to why you've picked him over, say, a Liverpool or Arsenal defender?
Well, I mean, I had my eye on him before that, really. I just think, what defense can you sort of trust? It's sort of the Arsenal and City defenses, pretty much the only defenses I would say, oh, I'm gonna probably get a clean sheet here. And Gvardiol is very, very attacking, so I would have thought about him anyway. He's 6 million. He's had 20 shots inside the box. Minutes per shot on target is every 179 minutes, which is very strong for a defender. He's won 22 fouls and he's got 9 clean sheets. And when I was looking at all the sort of new metrics of bonuses, um, I just thought, who's going to get clean sheets? Who's not going to get that -4 for every goal conceded? Who's going to get me, attacking returns possibly? And it was really just came down to Gvardiol. I do actually think that Van Dijk could be a good option. He also has a number of shots in the box, double the amount that Gvardiol has had, but he's not as frequent. So Gvardiol hasn't had the same amount of minutes. But 9 clean sheets as well last season. And that's why Dunk's in there as well, because he's got a shot on him. He's 27 shots inside the box. Same as Porro, who everyone talks about as being attacking. So Dunk, in terms of close range efforts, is as attacking. And they're both very similar in terms of shots on target. So Dunk will be a threat at set pieces. Fouls one. Porro has had 27. So you can see I'm starting to think about Porro as well. So I want Gvardiol in there because I might want to hop off him and go to Porro, or I might have money elsewhere to go for Porro because Spurs fixtures early on includes Newcastle and Arsenal. I don't really like that, but as we go on, they've got from game week 7 they've got Brighton, they've got West Ham, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa. That's tough, but then they switch at home game week 11. So I'm starting to think about that's what I mean about price points. I'm starting to think about players that I want down the line if I don't wildcard, because I still don't know if I'm going to wildcard in game week 3 or 7, or possibly even later as well. But as I said, I'm really not keen later on because that pesky mystery chip. Who knows what it is? But yeah, that's why I've gone for Guardiola. But these 4.5 defenders, there's so many of them,
Big
and
teams
there's
as well. Newcastle, Man United, Villa, Chelsea.
yeah,
Those are four potential
yeah.
top
So
top 8 teams.
Right, okay. So, I mean, a Chelsea defender I could easily put in. I'm not keen on Sanchez because I don't think he's a good asset in FPL, and less so now under the bonus point system. But you as a Chelsea fan, which of the 4.5 Chelsea defenders would you recommend?
I think. I mean, we got to see how he's going to set up. I'd rule out Chilwell. I'm not. He's. I know he's 5, but that lends itself to Colwill perhaps. But I don't think Chilwell fits the system. I think Cucurella could be the inverted left back, as we saw at the end of last season, because what Maresca does is he does sort of what Arsenal used to do with Zinchenko, coming into the midfield and then playing essentially Ben White as the third centre back. So that
Good.
I think Colwill is going to start. I'd be
Mhm.
shocked if he didn't, and he's 4.5.
Yeah.
Toss in as well. I think he's been brought in to start potentially in the middle of the
Mhm.
three when one inverts, so he could be good. I wouldn't. I think Disasi is going to fall foul of the emphasis on passing
Okay.
and ball skills. But yeah,
Mm.
it's definitely wait and see. But
Yeah.
Cucurella, I'm very interested in. I'm
I,
unlike you. I am actually interested in Sanchez, to be fair, because I think our fixtures are good, and I think we're going to be a lot more solid next season under Maresca for
I think
sure.
I think possible. I mean, you have to bear in mind that he was replaced in the Brighton starting 11 to Jason Steele, who was better at saving and passing from the back. So that's the level of quality he is.
Yeah, I do find it interesting with Sanchez because we didn't really get to see that much of him until
Mm.
he got injured. But we've also got the Brighton goalkeeper coach who seems to love him and
Mm.
was a big driver behind the signing. So yeah, I don't know what to think. I know you're not too high on him, but we'll have to
Well,
see.
I
By
mean,
reports suggest that he's going to be first choice ahead of Petrovic, I think.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure he will be, but he's just not that great. And I mean, the thing is, the 4.5 goalkeepers is quite. There's not really anyone who's great in that option, so you might as well go for him. Obviously, he starts with City, but I think there is potential, as you were saying about Cucurella, Colwell, even. I mean, it's pretty much the old Brighton backline, surprisingly
Well,
at
you can't
Chelsea.
claim Colwill. I'm not letting you claim Colwill. He's
We
on loan.
He was rubbish before he came to Brighton. And but yeah, so y- y- there's options there. Particularly Cucurella. I mean, I might want to spend a bit more on Chilwell. I mean, why not? You don't know. But yeah, pre-season will tell us these things. And that's why it's good. So, but I mean, it was good to get that insight because all of those names you mentioned are all possibilities there. And so I definitely want that price point there. But we also this season, it's quite rare. We've got a number of 4 million starting defenders. So I've got Howard Bayliss from Southampton, Howard Bella, sorry, from Southampton as mine. But I could have, any number of other ones. Face at Leicester is really good. So I think that's he will start. But however, looking at the fixtures, I don't think Leicester's fixtures. To remind myself, yeah, they got Tottenham, and Villa in the first 5, so they're not too bad, the other ones. But then they got Arsenal game week 6. It gets better game week 7. So possibly I might switch to him face but I might wildcard in game week 7. As I said, lots are up in the air really, but I think there's a lot of value in those mid-price mids, which enables you to go for Salah and Haaland if you wanted to, and also those 4.5 defenders as well. So many of them. Dan Burn
Yeah.
is actually really good in FPL. Conser, I can believe Conser was 4.5. Mark Gahey, 4.5. Lewis Dunk, 4.5. I mean, the list goes on. There's so many of them.
Yeah, definitely. I should just shout out on the website, Neil has done an incredible article where he's gone through all 48 4 million defenders and picked out the ones who could start, will start, and who
Mm,
have already been sent out on loan because there are a couple. So
yeah.
the final part of your team that we'll cover, Joe, if you don't mind, is goalkeepers because less so the players because as you said, there's lots of options and there's lots to see, but for me, the interesting thing is that you've got two playing keepers.
Mhm.
Is that something you always do? Is that just because you've got
Yeah.
money or what?
Yeah, I do like to do that. It's not necessarily rotating. It's more like in fixture blocks, really. Um, And the two I like here are, yeah, so I mean, the 4.5 is, it's worth noting. There's something that comes up in the video I did with Mark. He spotted that Crystal Palace and Everton rotate really well. So that's an opportunity for Pickford and Henderson, but that costs a lot of money. You could go Mikalenko and Anderson, for example, or Mark Gahey. So you can go for that. So that might put me off getting Henderson. But for now, I like Crystal Palace's early fixtures. So I'd probably just play Henderson. Also, I'm assuming it is Henderson's going to start. So it'll be, whichever the 4.5 Crystal Palace keeper. I'm assuming it'll be him. But looking at the fixtures, Crystal Palace in game week 1. They got Brentford away, West Ham at home, Chelsea away, Leicester at home, Manchester United at home. All of those are okay fixtures for a goalkeeper. He's either going to not concede a lot, I would imagine, or he's going to get a clean sheet, or he's going to rack up lots of saves, perhaps against Chelsea or Manchester United might. Well, actually, not against Manchester United because historically they're actually not very attacking. But Chelsea might rack up a lot of saves. So I kind of like that. And that run carries on. They've got Crystal Palace, got Everton away, but then it gets tough game week 7 with Liverpool at home. But then, hey presto, Wolves have Brentford away then, so I can move to Sar. And then when Wolves have Man City at home in game week 8, Crystal Palace have Nottingham Forest, and then a quite good run. Tottenham, Wolves, Fulham coming up. So there's a nice run. I could go back to Crystal Palace, but Wolves' run is even better from game week 9. So suddenly I've got a choice of two keepers with good fixture runs. So I've got Crystal Palace good fixture run. Wolves keeper can slot in. Then I can have a choice. And Wolves fixture run from game week 9, it's probably been covered. I think it's game week 9 through it's game week 9, which is October the 20 something, right up until Boxing Day. Wolves fixtures are great. It's a rare, spectacularly good run. Now Wolves have made a lot of transfers, or rather transfers out, so it's unsure whether they'll be any good. But I've got Saar in there as a potential if I don't wildcard. If I wildcard and it's not the case, I move him out. But Saar is a good goalkeeper who has historically been much better than that price. I was very pleased when I saw him at 4.5 because he's usually 5 million. So I'm just finding, oh, here we go. Yeah, Jose Sá. So he only got 107 points last season, but the year before, 148 points. Year before, 146 points. So that's the sort of keeper he is, potentially. So I would want that keeper for that period. So he's just there to sort of sit on the bench, really. So I like that move
He does
so
cover.
far.
He covers Crystal Palace's Chelsea game as well with a trip to Forest, which
There we
is
go.
quite
There we
handy.
go.
Yeah.
There we go. So I've got those in there. So I do think, but no, I'm getting Edison, Allison. That's not going to happen. I need that money elsewhere, and I don't like with the potential to save transfers. I do not like having a 4.9, 4.0 dud in the team, who because I don't want to have to make that goalkeeper transfer. If I can avoid it, I'd like to save that transfer. And I think Henderson and Sarr could keep me going for quite a while there. But I'm, you said the last thing we would talk about in the team, but there's a player in my team which you haven't mentioned that might raise eyebrows.
Gibbs White, is it?
No,
No.
no, Morgan
Oh, Morgan
Rogers.
Rogers. Yeah. Sorry, I should mention. Yeah, he scored twice yesterday in a friendly.
Yes,
He
and that's
did.
one of the reasons I put him in to show people what happens in pre-season. So I jokingly said, of course, I've got him in after he scored his second goal went in. But that's what's going to happen in pre-season. Now, I previously had, oh, I don't know, Chowdhury from Leicester, 4.5. I had a sort of 4.5, bench fodder. But then I thought, no, I'm probably going to want to get a slightly better player or player. And I started to look into Morgan Rogers, and he played a bit under Villa, and he got some all right returns actually whenever he came on. So let's look in here. Yeah, I mean, he got 3 goals and an assist from 600, just over 600 minutes, and he came from Middlesbrough and did really well there. Um, and he's doing well at Villa. He's exactly the kind of player that when that will get, even if he doesn't start, he'll come on, I think. Also, he's the sort of player that should start when Villa's cup run starts in Europe. So I'm going to be looking at a player like him. Now, if I don't go for Rodgers, if I don't go for Salah, for example, I can upgrade Rodgers to a 5.5 or even 6 million and go for, a really hefty midfield. But for the moment, I think he is. But he's also there just to show, to highlight to people what happens in pre-season. And we're going to get this all the time. Um, and way back, I don't know if you were playing when Michu was a thing, the
No, that's
Swansea
before
player
my time.
all the
No.
time. But no one had really heard of him. This gangly Spaniard coming in pre-season, scoring every week in pre-season, and so a lot of us said, "Well, look, this guy's just really good for Swansea. We'll get him in." And he was, I cannot express how much of a legend he was. He was he was amazing. He was so much so that people were captaining him like on the last game week of the season. Um, People were. He was amazing. He was performing like a 11 million pound midfielder, and I can't remember whatever his price was, but it certainly wasn't that 7 million or something. He was absolutely fantastic and on penalties, and so we're sort of looking for those types of players, really. Who may get the minutes, may do well. I'm not saying Rodgers is the one, but he's an example of the sort of players. He's just scored a brace. There'll be I don't know, a midfielder from Palace or Brighton, who does the same next week, and everyone will get him in. But it's just to show you there. So, but yeah, you mentioned Gibbs White. Um, Gibbs White I think might become Hudson Odoi because I think Hudson Odoi might actually offer more, even though Gibbs White's on penalties. I do like Nottingham Forest's early fixtures a lot. They play, they're quite high up on they're Bournemouth at home, then they're Southampton away, Wolves at home, got a Liverpool game, but then they've got Brighton away. Then it goes, they've got Fulham in game week 6, so it's a nice early run. So I'd like a piece of that. I can afford Gibbs White at the moment, but I might knock him down to Hudson Odoi. I might move Rodgers up to Hudson Odoi, and if I don't have Salah, I can upgrade Gibbs White. You see what I mean about the price points and juggling the money early on? I'm already thinking about which of those players I would like to move on and which other players I might want there. So yeah, I mean um, I made this team pretty quick, really, as soon as it launched. And I've only changed a couple of things. Like I said, I got Rodgers in, and I think I got Burn in because I didn't notice that he was 4.5. Um, but I feel comfortable. I feel at ease with this. I'm at peace with this. I'm like one of those in my head. I'm like very very chilled out surfer from California in the late
Riding
60s,
those Haaland Ipswich waves.
riding the Harlan waves. I feel very very tranquil about it.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, it's definitely given me some food for thought because I'm going Haaland. I've got Haaland and Salah at the minute, but I'm trying to fit Saliba in as well. But your team looks a hell of a lot more balanced than mine. But yeah, so Joe, thank you very much. Really interesting stuff about price points, fixtures, captaincy, and of course the team. So yeah, I'll shout out the members area one more time because, as Joe mentioned, Morgan Rogers scored a couple of times, and that he's the first bandwagon, but there's going to be plenty more, and you can spot them all on the Scout Minutes tracker, which tracks the goals and assists throughout pre-season for every player at every club. The link is in the description below. So Joe, thank you very much for your team reveal and also the one you did with Mark, which went out yesterday as you're watching this. So do check that out if you haven't already. Joe, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
And it's goodbye from me.